I'm out. I'm finally out of there. No more trying and failing to game the algorithm with half-baked, mobile-friendly videos for me. Instead, I'm in the middle of a bombed-out city. Oh no, could this mean? Was I transported to a time after the fall of man? Am I the last surviving sentient being on this god-forsaken rock? Well, I guess I have enough time now to reminisce on the many follies of man. Let's start small, with a post-apocalyptic video game that had a very unfortunate development history. Hello, pyromaniacs, or what's left of you. This is I Am Alive. For now. I Am Alive started development under the working title Alive all the way back in 2005, although some sources say that the people at Darkworks, the France-based developer behind the game, were conceptualizing and prototyping the game even further back in 2001. The game was intended to be a linear first-person survival game set in Chicago in the wake of a devastating earthquake that leveled the city. It would have followed Adam Collins, a white-collar businessman turned action hero as he scours the rubble of the city looking for his girlfriend Alice, or at the very least find out what happened to her. The gameplay would have revolved around scavenging for resources in pseudo-linear levels kind of laid out like Bioshock or Deus Ex. Basically, the game would have had the layout of what hipsters call 0451 games, which is a topic for another day. But the thing that really held this game apart from others was the surprisingly intuitive way that the enemy AI would work. Unlike most shooters, this game would discourage direct gunplay and instead focus more on outsmarting and outmaneuvering the hostile survivors of the city. Rather than attacking you head-on, the survivors would approach with caution and their actions would depend on how you react to them. You can negotiate with them, scare them off, or just give them the tried-and-true razzle-dazzle.
I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
But only as an absolute last resort, because health items and ammunition would be extremely scarce. Alive was picked up by Ubisoft sometime in 2006 and subsequently announced later that same year with a rough 2007 release date planned. But then, all of 2007 passed with no new info on the game whatsoever. Finally, at E3 2008, the game was publicly shown off as a pre-rendered CGI trailer, as was the norm for E3 back then, for better or worse. Mostly worse. At E3, they also announced a release date of April 2009, which I'm sure will be set in stone this time around, right? Not long after E3, Ubisoft executive producer Alain Collet said in an interview that, "We hope it can be another strong franchise for our portfolio, alongside Prince of Persia or Rayman." And might I just say that better aged words have never been spoken. So, 2009 rolled along, and as was tradition at this point, the game was yet again delayed to next year. Specifically, a March 2010 release to be exact. However, this time was different, as Ubisoft would be pulling Darkworks from the project and handing it off to Ubisoft Shanghai, effectively taking a project that this studio had been working on for nearly a decade at this point and giving it to a nameless support studio. There's so little known about the behind the scenes of this game's development, so it's not easy to say how much at fault Darkworks was in all this, but even then, that's gotta hurt. My guess for what held this game back for so long has to be their ideas for the AI. It just seemed a bit too ambitious for such a small studio. But with all that said, in March 2012, Ubisoft Shanghai actually managed to get the game out, and it's considerably different from Darkworks' original vision. Although there's still a bit of the DNA of the original concept left in there, the team basically scrapped Darkworks' whole game and started from scratch, reworking the premise into something different. Something more akin to another very popular Ubisoft series that was leaping off the shelves around this same time. Ubisoft Shanghai's I Am Alive has a completely different story from Darkworks' project. This version of the game follows a nameless protagonist a year after a global cataclysmic event known only as the Event. Really put your heads together coming up with that one, huh? The game begins with our protagonist returning home to the city of Haventon. Haventon? Haventon. Whatever. In search of his wife and daughter who he hasn't seen since before the event. Hey, side note real quick, remember when vague titles for things were seen as cool and intriguing and weren't just pretentious and lacking in creativity? Because I don't. Turns out his wife and daughter already skipped town a year prior, and not long after discovering this, our unnamed protagonist stumbles across a small girl that reminds him of his own daughter. After saving the child from attackers, he decides that if he can't reunite with his own family, he might as well help this girl find hers. The gameplay, like the story, is extremely different from the original build. While it keeps the first-person perspective when aiming your gun, most of the gameplay is in third person. So what do you do in this game? Well, as I hinted earlier, this game takes a lot of cues from Assassin's Creed. Most of your time in the game is spent climbing the ruined skyscrapers of not Chicago, and collecting resources. But while the climbing mechanics take major inspiration from those games, it's far from a direct copy. Unlike the high-flying, backstabbing adventures of Desmond's Bloodline, and whoever these new guys are that I couldn't care less about, I Am Alive is still a survival game at its core. The simple act of climbing depletes a stamina meter, not dissimilar to Breath of the Wild. I compare games to Breath of the Wild way too often, I'm sorry. Although after your stamina is depleted, you have a chance of extending your climb by mashing the sprint button. This comes at the cost of depleting your max stamina once you recover though, so it shouldn't exactly be something you rely on aside from extreme situations. Your max stamina can be restored though with healing items like food and drinks, but those in themselves are pretty rare and you'll have to go out looking for them. Another way to slow your stamina depletion while climbing is by collecting pitons, which you can stick into any wall and give yourself a place to rest and restore your lost stamina. Yet another limited item to add to your repertoire. One thing that I have yet to mention is that this game is in fact open world. Kinda. The overworld doesn't really serve much of a purpose aside from being a long stretch of nothing in between you and your next objective marker. There's not really much point in exploring the city, and nor would you want to because, well, it slowly kills you. The real reason most of the game is comprised of climbing buildings is because of the main effects of the event. The closer to the ground level you get, the more the city is covered in more dust than my copy of Sonic Forces. The dust in the air is so thick that it can deplete your stamina and eventually your health as well. So you're pretty much encouraged to get to your objective as fast as possible and always seek the high ground whenever available or else you're screwed. It's very different from modern Ubisoft open worlds that litter the maps with as many pointless side objectives and collectibles as possible to give the illusion of having more content than there actually is. Funny thing is, there is actually some merit to braving the wasteland, as you can occasionally stumble across food, first aid kits, or pitons that can help you on your journey. It's a gamble, but in an odd way, this empty wasteland actually has more reason to exist behind it than your average Ubisoft game.
Really makes you think.
Of all the stuff they changed from the Darkworks version, you'll never guess what they left in. Remember that complex and unpredictable AI that could either attack you or bargain with you depending on how you interact with them? Well, they actually left this concept in all the way to release. Kinda. The whole idea of Darkworks' vision for this system was to discourage violence and find alternate ways for you to deal with your enemies. But in this game, there's really only a handful of ways these confrontations will go, with all of them ending in somebody dying. Preferably not you. The average encounter goes a little like this. The scavengers circle you, you pull your gun, which makes them more cautious, the other scavenger with a gun approaches you, you kill him, shoot one scavenger, and then pick off the other stragglers with minimal injury if you're lucky. It's just disappointing that such an interesting system had to be stripped down so much to the point that it's just a monotonous routine. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention that this game has a live system. This game has a live system. Like a limited live system. This open world survival game from 2012 has limited lives like it's freaking Mario. Luckily, there is a difficulty setting that gives you infinite lives, which is the one that I played on. Because there was once a time, not long ago at all, when my time was valuable. You get more lives by searching for survivors and giving them supplies, which is actually an interesting idea. Do you save your resources for when you need them, or do you sacrifice them for another retry? This is actually a really cool risk-reward system, and I'm conflicted about whether it should be here at all because why are there lives in a 2012 survival game? This is a game that seems to have one negative for every positive. It's perfectly mediocre in every way, and it's a real shame because I can see a ton of potential in nearly every aspect of this game. If they had a bigger team working on this project and more time to flesh out all of these concepts, this game really could have been something special. It's clear Ubisoft wanted this to spur sequels, but they also didn't want to put in the money to make sure that would be the case. Just unceremoniously throwing this game out on digital storefronts like they just wanted it over with. In the end, Darkworks ended up shutting down just a year before this game released. Meanwhile, Ubisoft Singapore is spearheading development of Skull and Bones, which is now on its 5th delay? Never change, Ubisoft Singapore. never change. And with that last story, I think I'll just wander this infinite wasteland until I die or something.
Hey Pyro, fancy seeing you here.
Todd? What are you doing in the post-apocalypse?
The creation engine is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Okay, you know, I'm just not going to question that. Hey, is it possible for you to bring me back to the year 2022?
Oh, you don't want me to tell you how it all ended?
Not really. I just want to get back home.
Warp never changes.
Todd, please.
Okay, fine. You mortals have no taste for the tricks. Just be warned, time travel can be
Yeah, margin of error, yada yada. I've been here before. Just take me home.
What if I send you to some random fantasy realm instead?
You wouldn't.
See you later, Fetcher.
Curse you, Todd Howard! Hey there, Pyromaniacs. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, then leave a like and become a Pyromaniac yourself by subscribing. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at PunishedPyromon, long story, and listen to my podcast, the YTFA Podcast. And maybe join our Discord as well. We have a lot of fun there, so don't forget to check us out. Anyway, until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.